Hello everyone, so today's video is going to be another archetype introduction video, and it's an archetype that is new to the blue color, which is the Phantasm/Phantasmal archetype. So, let's get into the core cards of the deck. The deck revolves mainly around Madame Phantasm. And the reason I say this is because she searches essentially the entire archetype. So she's a 6-cost unit with 3,000 power. She's a witch, which will come into play. This card costs 1 less to play for each witch unit you control, so you can reduce her cost. She also has an arrive ability that says you may add 1 phantasmal card from your deck or discard zone to your hand. She also has another ability, but we'll come back to that later. So, speaking about the arrive ability, these are the 4 phantasmal spell cards that she can actually search whenever she summons. So she can search Phantasmal Guards, Phantasmal Army, Phantasmal Bolt, and Phantasmal Storm. On top of the spells, she can also search the boss monster, which is Phantasmal Gigant. So the first thing I want to do is go over the new Phantasmal spell cards. So we already know what Phantasmal Guards does. Let's get into Army, Bolt, and Storm. Now, each of the Phantasmal spells above have a unique ability, and they also share a Shard Drain ability. So first, let's go over the first abilities. Phantasmal Army says, put into play illusion unit tokens equal to the number of units your opponent controls. So not bad, but it would have been so much better if the tokens actually counted as witch units to help Madame Phantasm come out for cheaper, but that's not the case. Bolt deals 1,000 damage to a target unit, and if it destroys it, you add a witch unit from your discard zone back to your hand. So that could be nice, but also situational. And then Phantasmal Storm deals 2,000 damage to a target unit. So very simple. Now, each of these phantasmal spells also share the same ability, which is the Shard Drain 1 ability. And what they do is they'll expel themselves from the discard zone, and then you get to search another from your deck and add it to your hand. So it replaces itself, which is really nice. The problem is you have to Shard Drain 1, so that can become costly. Now, Madame Phantasm has a Shard Drain ability as well, but we want to get into that later because it plays into the costliness of the Shard Drain ability. First, let's take a look at Phantasmal Gigant. Okay? So Phantasmal Gigant is a destroyer. He costs 8 and he has 5,000 power. So very beefy, very costly. But he can cost 1 less to play for each different phantasmal card in the discard zone. So ultimately, you can have 5 different phantasmal cards because he can count another copy of himself. So you can have 5 different phantasmal names in the grave. So he can come out for 3 at the very least. Also, he reads, when this card attacks, deal X thousand to target unit or face-up tower, where X is equal to the number of different phantasmal cards. So again, he can deal 5,000 damage at most if you have 5 different names in your discard zone to a target tower or unit. So, very strong. The fact that he can destroy 3 towers in 1 attack is really cool. So, I know some of the new Phantasmal spells aren't that great. I think Phantasmal Storm is really the only good one. But, at the same time, because it plays into Phantasmal Gigant's effects, I think it's necessary to at least run one of the Army and Bolt just because of the name. So, now that we've gone over Phantasmal Gigant, let's now take a look at Madame Phantasm's Shard Drain ability. So, her Shard Drain ability is she Shard Drains 1, and she can expel it from her discard zone herself, and then search your deck for an Academy of Argos and put it into play. What's Academy of Argos? This is Academy of Argos. It's a 1-cost augment that reads, when you attack with a witch, place 1 counter on this card. Once per turn, if you were to use Shard Drain to return a number of shards to your shard deck, you may remove that many counters from this card instead. So basically, when a witch attacks, Academy of Argos gets a counter, and then if you were to Shard Drain, you can remove counters from Academy of Argos instead of putting one of your shards on the bottom of your shard deck. Very powerful augment for sure. And you have a way to directly put it into play, which is even crazier to me. Even though these new cards are costly with Shard Draining 1 to add an additional copy to their hand, Academy of Argos pretty much takes that away. And that's the whole gimmick I would say, to the Phantasm / Phantasmal archetype. You're replacing your cards, but you're also shard draining them. In order to mitigate the loss, you play a very powerful augment in Academy of Argos, so you can essentially get free copies of cards for no cost. Right? Pretty cool. With that being said, these are the core cards. Let's take a look at some of, the direct supporters of the deck. So starting off, we have Witch units, right? We have Amateur Witch, which is just a one cost vanilla. Sereno, Witch of Sealing, which has an arrive ability that says you may reveal 2 different spells from your hand. If you do, target unit your opponent controls cannot use Guardian this turn, so it's kind of an aggressive card, which is nice. Wando, Witch of Warding, which allows you to reveal 2 different spells from your hand and sacrifice her, and then that turn, witch units you control take no damage, and they cannot be targeted by spells or abilities. So a very powerful effect, but very costly effect. Effie, the Evil Witch, which in my opinion is probably... So Effie, the Evil Witch, which is probably the best one in my opinion. She's a 5-cost unit with 3,000 power. And whenever she attacks, you can reveal 2 different spells from your hand, and if you do, you return up to X target units your opponent controls to the bottom of their deck, where X is equal to the number of witch units you control. So if you have 2 or 3 witches on your field, including her, because she's a witch, you can put 3 units that your opponent controls on the bottom of their deck. So very powerful effect. And the other witch unit is Mara, Mischievous Witch, which is a 2-cost unit. And she has an arrive ability that says you may reveal 2 different spells from your hand. If you do, search your deck for an animated unit and put it into play. So the animated units that we have are actually Animated Spellbook and Broomstick. So Spellbook, whenever it's ruined, you add a spell that costs 1 or less from your deck to your hand. So Phantasmal Guards is one of those spells that you can add. And then Animated Broomstick has a ruined ability where you add a target witch unit from your discard zone back to your hand. So a lot of recycling. So that's kind of nice. These are the direct supporters. They're all witch units, so they play into Academy of Argos. They also allow Madame Phantasm to come out for less cost. So the other 2 direct supporters are Juggernaut, which is one of the more powerful cards in the meta, and Ancient Serpent's Breath, which is another powerful card in the meta. And the reason that these are direct supporters is because they utilize the Shard Drain ability, which, again, is free if Academy of Argos is on the field. So the big question, then, is what is the best way to play Phantasm / Phantasmal? And again, my opinion. Maybe you have a different one, and if so, I'd love to hear it. So please put that in the comment sections below. So in my opinion, the best way to play this is mono blue. The reason I say that is because the deck requires a lot of cards to be played. So you can't have blue as a complementary color. You need to play it as a primary. And even though there are some colors that probably could go along with blue, we've already seen it with Jamal Luna, I think the best way to run it is mono blue, mainly because Fizzy also has a Shard Drain ability where each turn you can Shard Drain 1 and draw a card. So if you're using Academy of Argos, you can basically draw 1 card extra per turn for free. So in my opinion, that's nuts. Blue also has tons of powerful water cards, and being able to draw 2 cards per turn, essentially, with Fizzy's Shard Drain ability with Academy of Argos, you can get through your deck very quick and get to those power cards. So that's the way I would play it. I don't think the archetype is that great in comparison to the other cards that we're getting in the set, but if it's something that you enjoy, this is the way I would play it. So that's my take on the Phantasmal archetype, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Also, stay tuned for more great content. Zeppelin out.